Welcome to another podcast episode of Akiona Law, wherein we discuss all things that intersect within the areas of family law and divorce. I am Lani Akiona, and today I'm very excited to have with me some very important guests. We have Bill Eddy and Megan Hunter of the High Conflict Institute. Welcome, Bill and Megan.
Thanks so much. We're glad to be on.
Glad to have you guys here. So just in terms of a little bit of background for you folks, Megan is the co-founder of the High Conflict Institute with Bill. She's an expert on high conflict disputes. Her and Bill developed the high conflict personality theory.
Well, just Bill.
Yeah, just Bill.
Yep, Bill. That was his theory, and I developed the concept of the institute. And twisted Bill's arm and said, everybody needs to know about your concept.
Yes. And thank you for twisting his arm, Megan. So Megan you've got 13 years in policy, legislation, judicial training with the Arizona Supreme Court, and 5 years with the Dawes County's Attorney Office in Nebraska. You are the founder and publisher of Unhooked Books, a US-based media company. Megan has trained businesses, workplace, government, public service, legal, mental health, leadership groups, nonprofits in the area of high conflict.
Yep.
And you're the author and co-author of several books yourself. And for Bill is the developer of the high conflict theory. And Bill, you developed that theory based on your 12 years as a family therapist. You've been trained as a mediator, you've been trained as a lawyer, you're an author of about close to a dozen books? No, not close to almost 24 books now, co-author?
In terms of books and manuals combined, we're over 20 now.
over 20. Oh my goodness. Bill has a popular blog on the Psychology Today website with over 3.5 million views. And you and Megan also have on the High Conflict Institute, you folks also have a series of playbooks to help people get some more in-depth training.
Yes.
Well, welcome to the show. Let's dive right in. So Bill, what is a high conflict personality? How did you come about this?
Well, because I was a therapist for 12 years, I was actually trained in 1980 in training to be a licensed clinical social worker therapist. The DSM-3, the Manual for Diagnosing Mental Disorders for Mental Health Professionals, came out in 1980. And where I was being trained, the two of the people from the committee came to our clinic and trained us in personality disorders, which was new in the diagnostic manual. So for the next 12 years, personality disorders was part of what I did as a therapist, as well as treating children and families, depression, anxiety, divorce, substance abuse, and all of that. So I had that background, but I really liked mediating disputes, helping people solve conflicts out of court. And I'd had some cases as therapist where the family was in court. So I wanted to become a mediator, and I became a lawyer in order to primarily do mediation. And then, my first few days in court, I realized, well, wait, everyone's talking about high conflict families. This isn't the whole family, it's often an individual, and they often have a personality disorder or traits, but nobody's talking about that. And so I started talking about high conflict personalities tend to have traits of personality disorders, and they have behaviors that show up with a lot of blame, a lot of conflict, and they often show up in families because that's the targets of blame are often co-parents or children or parents and all of that. So I took that mental health knowledge and kind of brought it into the legal context. And that's the high conflict personality theory really is that the conflicts we're seeing today have a lot to do with mental health issues such as personality disorders.
Okay. And
that's the short answer.
That's the short answer. And how did you and Megan get together to form this High Conflict Institute? Megan, because I heard you say you're twisting his arm earlier.
Yes, I did. So, sort of the short answer is, as I was at the Arizona Supreme Court as the family law specialist, I had opportunity to talk to the judges frequently. That was my job, and to sort of be that liaison between all of the stakeholders of professionals in family law and parents as well. And there was just this thread, this theme of high conflict, and no one knew what to do with it. And I looked at the data of the parent education classes, and they worked for the majority of people. It was kind of the 80-20 rule. 20% just were not getting, around 20% just weren't catching on. And it became sort of clear that those were the high conflict cases that the judges didn't know what to do with. The lawyers, had these cases going on for a long, long time. There's a lot of litigation, a lot of firing. So I just got fascinated with this and why there were so many really smart people around the world working on this topic, and yet we didn't have solutions that were, had good impact and good results. So I came across an article written by a person I'd never heard of before. His name was Bill Eddy, and it was titled "How Personality Disorders Drive High Conflict Family Court Disputes." And I just had a lot of light bulb moments. Brought him to Arizona to train our family court judges back in 2005, and subsequently, a few months later, had him back to train custody evaluators. I thought, wow, this would be great information for them, and just put an open invitation out. And thought we'd have, maybe 30 or so people, and we had to close the doors at close to 200, and it was all the stakeholders plus. And it was that the topic was so, it was a challenging topic. It was critical because this is alienation, this is domestic violence, child abuse allegations, so many things wrapped up in high conflict. And so at that point, I knew that if you're a professional in family law, you need Bill Eddy's training. You need this information. And so we worked for a year trying to just kind of experimenting to see if around the country there would be interest in this. And we did little mini institutes in 6 different cities. And the result was the High Conflict Institute, started in 2008, and we haven't stopped since.
Well, thank you so much for starting that High Conflict Institute, both of you. I really wish it would be something like almost mandatory for family law attorneys, or when you're involved in these, especially the child custody disputes, is when you see the high conflict come up, that the judges were more aware to, so it could be something that be ordered instead of like we have to take parenting seminars. So it could be, hey, take this high conflict parenting seminar.
Oh, we'd love that. Yeah. We have one or more.
What is it called? What are the different names of the seminars that you have called?
Well, it depends if you're talking about for the professionals or for the parents. So we have a lot of trainings for professionals. In family law, Bill's recorded, I think, a 7-hour and a 12-hour for family law professionals, a full stop, and then a lot of other smaller seminars as well. But for families, we have what Bill created, which is New Ways for Families. And it teaches them the very necessary skills for, Bill probably want to talk about the 4 big skills that they learn, which are?
Well, number 1 is flexible thinking instead of all or nothing thinking. Okay. Then 2 is managed emotions instead of unmanaged emotions. 3 would be moderate behavior instead of extreme behavior. And the 4th is checking yourself instead of checking everybody else's behavior, because that's one of the hallmarks of high conflict people, is preoccupied with blaming others and never looking at themselves. So but one of the things in everything we teach, professionals and everybody else, parents, is to keep it simple. So we've really developed simple techniques that can be repeated over and over, that parents can teach their kids, that both parents can learn so they get along better even after a separation and divorce.
And the class that you're talking about, that's on the High Conflict Institute website.
we actually have three models of new ways for families. It started out as a counseling method, and we probably train 400 counselors by now, worldwide. Then we developed it as an online course in 2015. And then about 3 years ago, I think 2019, we added coaching with the online class. So 3 coaching sessions, and we train therapists, lawyers, mediators, and parent educators to be the coaches for those 3 practice sessions that go with the 12 online classes. So that's a long answer to yes, the online class is on our website, how to get trainings on our website, and learning more about the coaching, etc.
So I have a question. So if I'm a parent and I'm dealing with a high conflict individual, someone who's always blaming me, right? You use this terminology called targeted blame. Am I saying it correctly?
Yeah, exactly.
A high conflict individual essentially has no accountability, no responsibility. They engage in blame speak. Everyone else becomes a target of blame, and it's normally the co-parent. So if I'm like, okay, this person's driving me crazy, so much stress and anxiety every time I deal with them, like, Bill and Megan, help me. And I go onto your website. What's the class that you would first start off? Okay, first take this class.
Well, the New Ways for Families online course is actually 12 sessions. So we say sign up for that, take the first class, and the first class helps you cope emotionally with the stress of this all, because we realize that's where people really want to start. They're so stressed and just kind of lost. What should I do? So we say sign up for the whole 12 sessions, because that's going to help you with managing your emotions, with your thinking, helping make proposals, with responding to hostile emails with the BIFF method. And
everyone's favorite.
Yeah. And then to review, to check yourself. Am I picking on the other person, or do I need to look at myself?
And how long did you, and just for those of you who are new to Bill and Megan and the High Conflict Institute, BIFF stands for, it's a way of responding to high conflict blame speak called brief, informative, friendly, and firm. And how long is each session? It's an hour?
Roughly an hour. It's an online class, so it's mostly reading, watching video clips, and interacting by filling in your thoughts and how you might apply this in the future. So it's an interactive online course, and that's really essential for learning.
Okay.
Yeah, and so roughly an hour they spend, but it's at their own direction. So they might say maybe they got the kids put to bed, and now they have time, and they're going to do a couple hours. So they might do two of the 12 classes in one night. And most of the time this is court ordered, but people can take it voluntarily also. And sometimes if it's court ordered, people start getting around to it a week before their court date. So they're getting 2 or 3 hours at once. So it's really up to the parent's own schedule. But they really they don't have to drive anywhere for a class. In today's world, that's a real plus.
So if I was an attorney, but I am a lawyer.
Like for 15 years or whatever.
So if I put this like in a parenting plan that I want someone or like both parents to take this class, what are the costs that we're talking about? Because that's something the court's going to want to know.
Well, it depends. So I saw Bill kind of hesitating there because we've been changing some things recently, but we've tried to keep. Yeah, in general, like if you have to take it for a court-ordered, the mandatory parent education requirement, right, for your court. Number one, it's good to check with your court that they will accept the class, like an online class. But I think it's about $139 for that. And we partner with online parenting programs to provide that because they have all the things built in that are required by the courts, in terms of identifying that the person that's supposed to take the course is actually taking the course, that kind of thing. We also have it on our website at highconflictinstitute.com, or you can look just at New Ways for Families. Yeah, you can type that in and it'll come up. And we've kept the cost for the class, relatively low. We try to keep it around $100 for the 12 sessions. But we've added coaching because we really encourage people to include coaching with it. And we've made that quite reasonable. So they can take it with our in-house coach, or coaches, or they can take it with any of the licensed coaches that we've trained that are in 4 or 5 different continents around the world. And we have those lists on our website.
And that would be, I would imagine that would be a higher cost because you're getting personalized coaching, which is very helpful.
Yeah, let me jump in here for a minute and say that the state of Alaska did training with us on this, and that they are ordering parents to take the online class and to take the coaching. Portland, Oregon, the county there is also doing coaching. They have court counselors that are doing the coaching with the online program. And just yesterday, I was speaking to about a dozen judges in one of our counties in California that's been ordering. Orange County has ordered over 6,000 parents take the online class over the last 7 years. Yeah, almost 1,000 a year. And they see it so beneficial, it calms things down. But they were particularly interested yesterday in the coaching because they can see how that plus really is a benefit for parents, especially if they're a little bit harder to learn these skills. The coaching gives them 3 practice sessions, and it's always both parents. We always want both parents.
Yeah.
So if you go to court, ask for a court order that both parents. And if you have a client that says, I wish I could get my ex into some kind of counseling or skills. Yeah. We'll say the way to do that is volunteer for both of you to be ordered to take the New Ways for Families course.
And there are some, there are some courts that are now asking us for language that they can put in an order, like maybe in the parenting order that requires, them to take not just a class, but New Ways for Families online class.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I just typed in like what you said, Megan. I typed in New Ways for Family and boom, went right to your website.
That's good to know.
I put it right here in the chat. So for those of you who want to go on YouTube later on, I have it right there in the chat, and I'm gonna just take it off. Wow, I'm like super excited. I didn't realize it was that affordable.
And the coaching, so the coaching through our website is we've tried to keep it fairly affordable, and we're always willing to work with people if they have financial challenges as well. But truly, it's so worth it. It's not just an ordinary parenting class. It's very specifically designed to address the problems that we see in these high conflict disputes. But it's also really great for any divorcing parent to take it as well, because they'll learn these skills. And it like I saw in the data when I worked at the court from the parent education classes, that probably the 80% would say, oh, I did learn some things and I had some insight into some things I was doing that I shouldn't have been doing. I just didn't realize it. And they adapt their behavior. And so taking the class is great for everyone. Now, if someone reaches out to one of our licensed coaches anywhere in the world, they set their own prices. But we've tried to keep the class reasonable, and hopefully that helps everyone.
And typically it's less expensive than counseling. So that coaching doesn't have, but it isn't counseling, and people need to know that. We're not opening up people's feelings and how the stress they're going through. We're teaching them skills to manage the stress they're going through. And that's what coaching is, teaching skills.
And on the New Ways for Families, so a parent or even I guess like a family law professional such as an attorney or family law like divorce coach could come in and get training too.
Oh yeah, we give a 12-hour training for this coaching, and we get therapists, probably the most are therapists, but we also get some lawyers. We
Okay.
also get some mediators. We get the
Mediators, yeah.
coaches. And we get parent educators, people who haven't, they've been teaching parenting, but not necessarily divorce parenting or high conflict, and they want skills in that. So it's really accessible, and almost any professional would benefit from this and can then use it. So we do a 12-hour training in the coaching method and how to correlate it with the 12 online classes.
And again, this is all at your own pace
Yes.
when you have the time. Oh,
Yes.
perfect.
And as
Perfect.
Megan said, it's between the coach and the client, how much it's going to cost, when they're going to meet. Are they going to do it online? Are they going to do it in person now? So it's a very kind of self-directed thing. What we do is we teach skills and methods, and then professionals and individuals apply them.
And so as a professional, would I be working with an individual coach as well?
You could be a coach yourself if you wanted, or you could have a coach that you refer to. One thing interesting is, unlike counselors and lawyers who are governed by state boundaries, coaches can coach anybody anywhere in the world. Coaching isn't regulated, but we license our coaches, so they've had our training. If someone says, hey, I'm going to do this method, and you say, I looked on the New Ways list at High Conflict Institute, I didn't see your name. Oh, yeah, I didn't do it through them. I kind of self-taught. Well, I don't recommend that. We want people who've been through our training, because high conflict work is often very counterintuitive, the opposite of what you feel like doing. Yeah. And
I wanted to add, if I could, Lani, that I think in terms of for the parents, like Bill's talking about, going to a coach is fantastic. For the training for the professionals, that is partially on demand. So 4 hours you can take anytime, 24/7. And then the rest of the training is taught by Bill via Zoom in a live scheduled training. So we try to do 3 or 4 of those a year. So they, can take them, if you can't take it in the winter, you might take it in the summer.
Let me just add, and tell us when we should stop talking, because we can keep going. Let me just add, the training is mostly practicing coaching. And because we do it online on Zoom, we get people from all over the world. So you may be doing a practice exercise with somebody from Australia, or someone in Scotland, or someone in Canada. And then we rotate, so you get 2 or 3 different people. And so you may be, working with somebody, it's 4 PM for you, and it's 8 AM for them. It's the exact same skills. And while I'm at it, Scotland in particular is a country that's looking at perhaps taking this nationwide. They're doing a pilot project of coaching with the online class. So we're really excited at how it's spreading.
Well, as a family law attorney, sometimes I feel like I'm just in this cycle of just promoting conflict. So it's nice to have this resource out there to figure out, okay, how do I de-escalate conflict? Not only communications between the client and coaching them and how this is how I communicate to your co-parent, but then with the other attorney as well.
Absolutely. And what we find is we're now teaching lawyers how to use BIFF with other lawyers.
Yeah.
Because lawyer conversations can heat up online. And it's always fun showing some of the terrible examples and then some good responses. So lawyers have to learn this as well.
In fact, there'll be a BIFF for Lawyers book coming out next year.
No kidding.
Yep.
You're the first to know. You're definitely the first to know.
You heard it here first, folks, on the Akiona Law Podcast. Yeah. In fact, I got one of those emails that started off with, it sounds to me like you're making excuses from another lawyer. And right away, I'm like, oh no, she did it. And I was just ready to fire off an email and just be like, I'm just going to just take you down. And I had to pause and just be like, you know what? No, just shut your mouth and don't send it. Cause I couldn't think of anything nice to say. what I should have done is open up my BIFF book, but I was just too mad. So I just like, no. So I actually had my assistant. I'm like, you know what? Can you take care of responding to this email for me? Because I'm afraid whatever I'm going to say is going to sound snarky.
Right.
But yes. And one thing about I have to tell you about your training, Bill. I took that, it was just in the fall. I took that advanced, it was mediation for high conflict personalities.
Right.
And
right.
and a woman in one of my, man, it was hard. I mean, it's so, when you talk about it, it sounds so easy. And then we get into the practice groups, we're like, You're like, wait, what? But one of the women in my pods, I actually ran into at the association of the AFCC conference in Las Vegas. And I
Great.
ran into her and we're like, hey, and it was just so amazing to see someone in that training and then see them live and in person and then talk about your training and just be really excited and just be.
I think
Just-
it's
yeah.
great. More people have the same background knowledge and the
Yeah.
same skills and tools. It just calms things so fast. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, good, they speak my language.
Right. So we're going to get into, you wrote this book during the pandemic. What came out? It came out during the pandemic? Is that what it was in 2020?
Yes, November 2020. Yep.
Okay. And
That
the
was
book
the
is,
year we finally caught up on some writing with staying at home in our home offices.
well, there you go. And I'm glad you did, because you came out with BIFF, which is your guide to difficult co-parent texts, emails, and social media posts. So important. And the one thing that I really love about this book, and this is why you as co-parents have to get it, is that there's so many good examples within the book about how to respond to things, parenting plan changes, activities, doctor's appointment, medical decisions, where you give concrete examples of that high conflict personality, that blame speak, and what's not a good response and what is a good response. Can you define, because I've been using blame speak a lot, can you tell us out there what is blame speak?
Well, blame speak is kind of the language that's really going around a lot today, where people just come out full intensity. It's all about you. It's all your fault, which is the name of our podcast, surprisingly. But
Say that again. The name of your podcast?
it's all your fault.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So-
The subtitle, it's dealing with high conflict people, something like that. But the title is "It's All Your Fault," which is really, when you think about the number one theme of blame speak, is people put it 100% on the other person and none on themselves. And they feel self-righteous about it, like they have the right to blast you emotionally. You know, you are the worst parent in the city or on the planet, or, you know, and they talk with exaggerated emotions like that. It's all blame, not taking responsibility. There's a lot of all or nothing to the speaking, so that you see the words are used. It's like 100% this, 0% that. But it kicks you in the gut, like you feel emotionally hooked. That you really, we want to help people get unhooked. Megan can talk about unhooked, but what we want to do is help people overcome responding to blame speak with counter blame speak. And that's the temptation. So becoming aware not only of other people doing it, but of trying to overcome that yourself. And you can. And we've been teaching BIFF since March of 2007. So we're going, that's what, 16, 17 years?
Wow.
Let's see, right now, 16 years. Yeah, we're going on 16 years with this. And the feedback we get is people said, you know, with some practice, I really get it. And parents are so proud of their BIFF responses. I've had parents
They
say,
should be. They should be.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
Yes.
look at what was written to me and look at what my response was. And I'm like, way to go. You calmed the conversation just like that.
I wanted to, I made a note here about blame speak. Blame speak is a way of getting attention at a time of rapid change, a way of being heard and not ignored, often by people who have a great fear of being ignored or marginalized. And I think it's really important to note that you say here in your book that blame speak is not about us. It's really about, you said right here, it's about the blame speaker's inability to manage his or her emotions and behavior. So Megan, how do you counteract blame speak?
Well, if we go back to kind of what you were talking about when you wanted to respond to that email, you were in your reactive mode because you were, that's just human, when we get some nasty email and it's just, you just want to respond and we're all in a hurry and we're stressed out. So, the way I kind of looked at being emotionally hooked is, your heart rate, you might feel your heart rate going up. You might feel that urge to you're ticked off. You just, I was mad. This person's stupid. You might be blaming them or dissing them in some way, or you may just dread even reading that email or seeing that email. Those are pretty good indications that you're emotionally hooked. So that's when you just have to stop yourself and respond with BIFF and not give counter blame speak. And it can be tough. I mean, we've all been there and we've probably all written emails that we regret. I know I have, and it blows things up. So it takes a certain amount of discipline, but BIFF really is the antidote to blame speak. And, I think of an email conversation that was going back and forth with a certain individual. And you just kind of in the mode and you're just emailing back and forth and it's amping up a little bit, but you're busy with other things and answering other emails. And you finally realize I need to BIFF or else this is going to go on forever, right? Because now I feel like I'm getting ticked off. I'm feeling a little bit attacked. It's getting personal. And so I've, been disciplined and forced myself to BIFF. And instead of getting something back that's ugly and nasty, I got back, oh, okay, thanks. And it's the most empowering thing in the world. And you're like, I am so powerful, right? No, but it really, like Bill said, it's counterintuitive. But once you get it and you have that sense of empowerment, it's like it's like a drug. You want it again. I want to BIFF again because it's so good. And I teach it in the workplace as a time management tool. Because you think about all the time you spend emailing and not only just writing the emails, because that can be the quickest part, the perseverating about it in your mind all night or taking up your workday is really a big time management tool. So BIFF is a time management and risk management in a way tool.
And again, BIFF is talking about responding in a brief, informative, friendly, and firm manner. And as you say in your book, Bill, BIFF helps you to focus on writing carefully rather than emotionally reacting. And as Megan was talking about in her example, writing a BIFF email can influence the other person's response to you. If you can respond calmly, it can actually help the other person manage their own fearful or angry response. And not only that, too, like you talk about in the book, the whole point of BIFF is that you want to end the conversation. You don't want to get in that back and forth angry email exchange and be in that heightened, elevated emotional state. And so in a way, to me, a really good BIFF response is either you get that nice email, Megan, or you get nothing at all, right?
Yeah. And it's huge.
That sometimes it's really escalated and then you don't get a response and you go, peace, we finally reached that place of peace. But in many ways, I want to reinforce what you're saying is you can influence the other person's response. And the firm of brief and friendly and firm doesn't mean harsh. It means end the hostile conversation. And that's the key. And like Megan said, when you do that, often people appreciate it. It's like, thank you. Or, I was so upset, I'm sorry I said such and such, and thank you for being understanding. I've had feedback like that from clients and other people, that they really are venting and they've lost awareness of that. And when you respond with a BIFF and we don't need to go into venting, we're just doing a BIFF, they're like relieved by it. So it's so important that you can influence the other person by doing a BIFF.
And like you said, oh, I'm sorry,
No,
go
I'm
ahead,
sorry.
Megan.
I'm sorry. We're talkers here at HDI, aren't we? So in that example I was giving of my own BIFF experience, in that particular case, the individual that was emailing me needed to feel superior. And the person was saying, you just don't understand what I'm saying. You don't, you misunderstand. And it just, you're a little emotionally hooked, but I biffed and it calmed that person's fear of maybe feeling inferior. This person really needed to feel superior. And so I allowed, by using BIFF, I didn't escalate the fear, and instead it de-escalated it. It calmed the individual. And I got that, oh, okay, thanks. It was the best email I ever received.
Can you give us a brief example of what you said to that person?
Oh, I think it was, I had to stop myself from defending myself. Like,
Yeah.
actually, I did understand what you said, and I wanted to have a little head wag in there, but but I didn't say that. I didn't type it. I think I probably just said something like, "Well, thanks for the information. I kind of understand what you're saying, and hope you have a good weekend," something like that, and that was it.
Oh,
And it was okay,
okay.
thanks. It just stopped the whole back and forth exchange. I don't even remember what the issue was, and it doesn't matter because, in high conflict, as Bill, this is one of his best quotes: "The issue's not the issue. Anything can be the issue. It's they can make an issue of anything." So it's just in how you handle it. And I think for me, I've gotten into kind of a routine where you don't even have to try hard with BIFF. You just kind of go, "Hey, thanks for the information. Thanks for thanks for the feedback. Thanks for your email. I'll take a look and get back to you. Have a good weekend."
Oh, I love that.
You know what I mean? It's just
that.
like, you just avoid all the issues. You don't make it about you. And that's the number one thing I've been really harping on lately is you got to stop making it about you, because if you do, it just doesn't matter.
Don't take it personal. Like the 4 agreements, the first agreement, don't take things personally.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Don Miguel Ruiz. I'm a fan.
Lani, do you want an example from the book? I can give a fairly quick
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, yes, let's go for it. But
Sure.
I was going to say, really, because I mean, we're talking about BIFF, but then we're not really okay. So first, let's get into brief, right? Brief is 2 to 5 sentences,
Right,
and then you go into informative,
right.
which is, should I?
Information. All that you need is information. You don't need to defend yourself. No emotions. No
Opinions.
judgments, opinions, all of that. It's just, and we often say, just think of the who, what, where, and when. That's the kind of information that
Who, what, where, and when. Who, what, where, when. 4 things.
Yeah. We don't want people to memorize too much, but that idea that it's about logistical information, and then friendly, and then firm, that you end the hostile conversation. So this is a good, fairly quick example. This is on page 83 of the book, if people get the book. So this is Carlos's email to Maria. "When I got Junior today, he had an ear infection and needed to be taken to the doctor. The doctor said it was obvious he got sick at your house over the weekend and, all caps, you did nothing about it! Exclamation mark. He prescribed antibiotics, which you will need to make sure he takes twice a day in his ear. I'm sending the bottle with him to school tomorrow, so make sure he has it in his backpack when you pick him up. Once again, you have been, all caps, irresponsible about Junior's health care, and I have to clean up after your irresponsibility. I will discuss this with my lawyer and decide whether to return to court to reduce your parenting time for the health and safety of our son." So that's kind of a kick in the gut, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would feel so. I want to be like, screw you. How dare you talk? What's your problem?
Yeah,
What's wrong with you people?
that's right. Targets of blame. So
Right.
anyway, and I want to give credit to Megan here for developing the BIFF checker. So Maria writes a draft herself, says, "Thank you for taking Junior to the doctor." So that's friendly. I'll follow the directions for his medication. I was not irresponsible with Junior. He had no signs of an ear infection when he was with me. I'm fairly sure the doctor didn't tell you, blah, 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 blah. So now you go through the BIFF checkup. Was that brief? Yeah, it's a paragraph. Was that just straight information? Maybe not just straight information, maybe. Was that friendly? Maybe. It starts out friendly. Was it firm? Maybe, but Carla's going to react to that. Did it have advice? We have the 3 A's. Did it have advice, which isn't a good idea? No, it didn't have advice. Did it have admonishments? That's not a good idea either. Well, maybe. The comment about the doctor felt like she was admonishing him. Did it have apologies? And apologies are great, but they're not good with high conflict people. They turn it into ammunition against you. And for example, victims of domestic violence are often apologizing for this and that to calm down their partner. But we don't recommend that at all. You don't need to do that. That puts you in a one-down position. So in this case, there's no apologies. But could she write it better? So tell me what you think about this. Carlos, thank you for taking Junior to the doctor. I will follow the directions for his medication. Junior had no signs of an ear infection while with me. As you may know, these symptoms can come on very quickly. I will keep you advised of Junior's condition while he is with me. And that's it. Did that feel different? Did that feel different from her first attempt where she was criticizing him back? I think that what's amazing is how it feels to hear a BIFF response. That's one example. But there's 28 examples in the book, and there's a list in the back. And if anybody has it and they haven't found it, it's on page 219, 28 examples, and it's a real resource.
Yeah, I love it on the, in fact, too, when I was reading the book, I was like, oh gosh, I wonder if there's something that can just easily summarize all these examples. And it's like, oh yeah, there it is, just right there. And the examples you give are like school, schedule, sorry, gatekeeping. So you talked about one thing you want to avoid in BIFF is the 3 A's, which is, oh gosh.
Advice.
It's advice, apologies, and
admonishments.
Right. Good.
That one.
So let's get into why you want to, well, you covered already why you want to avoid apologizing, because you're giving that high conflict personality, like you said in your book, they're going to latch onto it. And they're always going to, you gave a really good example, Bill, in your book about, you were doing a mediation and the husband brought out this letter the wife had written, I guess years ago, basically apologizing. And he brought out that letter to see, like, look, see, she was wrong then, and now she's wrong now.
It's all her fault.
Yeah, it's all her fault. So I thought that was really just powerful right there. Usually with a high conflict person, you can engage in that social nicety of apologizing because they're going to hold on to it. And like you said, always say you're wrong. And you don't want to give admonishments.
There it is.
And I'm an English major, believe it or not.
It's a hard word.
I blame it on the retainer I wore when I was younger.
Well, and it could be, you could just call it finger wag. Don't give a finger wag. An admonishment's like a finger wag, right?
Yeah, there you go. Don't act like you're a parent talking down to the child. And another thing that you said is don't give advice, because that can put the other person on the defensive.
And with advice, we both do a lot of consultation, and I've done several BIFF consultations with parents of adult children, like in college or young adults. And those are the ones most likely to try to give each other advice. So mom says, Johnny, the people you're dating, you really need to, do this, and this. And John writes back, Mom, you really need to get off my back. And while you're at it, you really need to find something to do during the day besides thinking about me. And so that's the age group that does the most advice. And it's so fun to help them pull back from giving each other advice. So it isn't just divorce, it's every aspect of life, especially family life, can benefit. But I also thought of something I want to reinforce. You know, Megan was saying in the workplace, and your listeners also have jobs. I found that a lot of women have told me that they like the idea of not apologizing in their BIFF, because in the workplace, they find that they often are apologizing too much as a way to kind of manage, especially if it's mostly male, like a high-tech company. We have dealings with high-tech companies, and they're mostly men, and women in that culture find themselves trying to calm people by apologizing, and that puts them in a weaker position. So it really helps to know, don't apologize, you don't have to, and people are telling us, you know, we're okay without having to apologize. So I think that helps.
And you made a suggestion that instead of saying, I'm sorry, you can use the word sadden. I'm saddened we're in this situation.
Yeah.
Is that
Go ahead. So what happens is people say, well, I'm sorry to see you in this situation. How's that sound? And I say, yeah, I understand that. But when you say that to the person, what they latch onto is that you're saying sorry, and that somehow you're responsible for them being in that situation. And so it's an easy word to switch with saddened. I'm saddened to see you're in that situation, and I am. And that way I'm not saying it's my fault. And high conflict people, you say, I'm a little bit sorry, I did a little bit of this wrong. What they hear is it's all your fault. So that's why we say avoid even the little apologies language. So I'm saddened. And it's fun because we teach people in Canada and Australia this, and Canada said, oh, sorry all the time. You know, sorry, I didn't hear, sorry this, sorry that. And I thought they'd push back on it, but they say, no, we agree with you that we say sorry too much.
No, I did work with a Canadian, and she did say sorry a lot.
Yeah, it's automatic. It's part of the language.
And Megan, would you use the word I'm saddened in a workplace setting? Like, I'm saddened we couldn't come to your agreement on this deadline? I don't know.
I mean, you could. The thing I've learned is you just try. You try it and see how it lands. And often what you'll find is, you know, what basically you're doing with that is what something Bill created called an ear statement, something that shows empathy, attention, and respect. And I'm saddened to see that you're frustrated about this, or I hear you, I get it, I see you're frustrated. You know, those are ear statements, and those usually calm people before you really engage further with them. And that's kind of a key first step. So I think you could say that. And if someone erupts, then you say, oh, okay. And you move on to, you know, try another ear statement. So that's kind of the fun thing about this, is it doesn't have to be so challenging. And I think a lot of people really are so frustrated and emotionally hooked and think that the high conflict individual is just too challenging for them. And it's really actually super simple. You just have to remember and be disciplined. And you just try something. If it doesn't work, you try again. I hope that makes sense. Hopefully it takes some of the mystery or fear out of trying this, because it's kind of learning a new way to respond instead of just the old ways we've been doing it.
Right. And Bill gives some, and I, you know, as I read this book, right, and you read the high conflict emails, as I'm reading them, I can feel myself getting worked up, and the brain, you know, the amygdala automatically goes, for me, it goes into fight mode. So in my head, I just feel like I'm coming up with all these things to argue, and because I feel like I have to defend myself. But again, what's so helpful in your book is that you give concrete examples of what not to say, how you can engage in BIFF. And for me, like, I need to see those examples, because like you said, like Megan, it's a way that you've got to, it's a new way of speaking, communicating, that you've got to train yourself to do. But the good news is that you can, it just takes practice.
And even high conflict people learn this. And sometimes we get people saying, I think I'm a high conflict person. Do you have something for me? I'm worried I'm going to lose my job or my family or something. And one of the great places to start is BIFF. If you learn BIFF, it doesn't just change how you write, it changes how you talk. And I think it changes how you think, because you check yourself more. BIFF is a great method for checking yourself.
And nobody wants to be stuck in that emotionally high level where you just in your gut, you feel sick and you feel anxious. Because like you talk about in the book, right? Because what it is too is that you said it's almost like, in a way, it's like a drug. You get hooked to that drug and you send out that email and you feel good, but then that's quickly replaced by fear and anxiety about getting that attack back.
Right. It's the 20-second high. And then it runs out.
Yeah. Whereas
I
with
think
BIFF,
so many people just don't know what to do instead. And they see the role models of society using blame speak so much that they just feel like that's what you're supposed to do, or people will look down on you. And people are so relieved to learn not only they can do this method, but that a lot of people are doing this method. We estimate with the book and our seminars, we probably taught about 500,000 people this method. And most people that learn it teach at least one other person. So I'm guessing maybe 1 million people now are using BIFF responses, which is very exciting. Yeah.
And some workplaces are adopting BIFF in their policies. BIFF is how we communicate, and it's not just for responding to a high conflict email. It's a new way of communicating in the workplace. So it keeps it as as a stress reduction tool, a time management tool, and all of that. Just write BIFF.
And it can change the company culture. That's what I think. It's done some great things with teaching a whole company the BIFF method. Just if nothing else, that itself. Although people take training, and that's what she's done with them.
Yeah, that's really important. I think that would be, I'm a small firm, but I'm like, man, I would love to do that for my employees, because it doesn't help if you have the training and then your employee is sending out that email.
Well, and it helps so much.
The new book is BIFF for Lawyers and Law Offices.
coming out next year.
When does it come out, Megan? This fall?
Probably winter 2024. So it takes a little while to get those out. But yeah, that'll be really fantastic. I was just going to say in, I think, November, I did a training for a family law firm, because the principal wanted everyone in her firm to know how to respond not only to clients, but to each other within the workplace. And they work remotely, which I believe can make things even more difficult, because you are separated one more degree. And even in the workplace, I think if I were standing talking to that employee in that moment, I probably would not be as sharp, or I would change, the email would change. So I think with so many people working remotely, it's probably behooves everyone to learn how to BIFF, and particularly lawyers, because you all know, every lawyer listening knows that they've gotten so many lawyer letters and emails that are just harsh on purpose, and it's really hard to take.
Not only that too, I kind of feel like, just in terms of the pandemic, and it's almost like there's everything kind of just slowed down in family law, and now it's like this boomerang effect where everybody's just twice as busy as they were before the pandemic, and a lot of attorneys are just stressed out. The clients are stressed out. So I feel like and I'm guilty of this too. Like, I feel like I've been more reactive and more on edge these past couple of months, and I completely forgot about BIFF. So I'm glad we're having this conversation, because it doesn't feel good. And when you were talking about the example about the email, Megan, and how you responded, it just immediately calmed me down as well.
Oh, it did. It's just like a small victory. And obviously I haven't forgotten it. And it's, it's not like you come across super high conflict emails every day, but when you do and you use BIFF, it is really empowering, and you remember it.
It's a superpower. That's what it is.
Yeah,
it's a superpower that we can all learn.
Use your superpower. Everybody's got it if they use it.
Yeah. And I wanted you gave a really good example too in your book about how it was this email here. You talked about how one thing you can do when you're responding to a, an incendiary or just one of those blaming emails is that you edit the email where you take out all of that language. So you're only focusing on what the actual problem is. And from there, you gave an example of how the person drafted his his email response. And for some reason, I can't pull it up. Okay, so you edit out, right? You're talking about you edit out all the necessary comments in the message so that you can only address what's necessary. And this helps avoid someone from overreacting to the emotional statements. So that's what it is. You remove all the emotional statements. You're an idiot. You're the most worst parent ever. Like if you move that, and there's probably like 2 sentences that you just really need to address.
Well, that's really important point. And I want to make sure we give credit to Kevin Chafin, who's one of the co-authors on the book, for coming up with that. And let's just look at the example I read earlier for you, is that long paragraph that Carlos writes to Maria. In there, there's like 1, maybe 2 sentences that are useful. And I'm sending the bottle with him to school tomorrow, so make sure he has it in his backpack when you pick him up. And the first sentence, when I got Junior today, he had an ear infection, needed to be taken to the doctor. There's 2 sentences out of maybe 10.
Yeah.
And so you cross out all the others, and then you answer those 2 sentences, and all the heat is gone. So I'm glad you raised that.
Yeah, no, I thought that was just brilliant, because it's like, yeah, that's right. If you take out all the emotional response, the blame, speed, and accusations, you can really address the heart of the issue. And I think it's important to know that you talked about one of the purposes of BIFF. The goal is to communicate about problem solving without continuing an argument or creating defensiveness in the other parent. And it's, again, like you said, I think I've got to, I feel like I should maybe put that in a Post-it and put it on my computer, because it applies to, like you were saying, Megan, to a coworker,
family member, anyone.
Yeah.
I mean, we digital communication takes up so much of our lives, and I don't think we should rely solely on, technology and software programs. I think we need to edit ourselves, and this is good human growth, right? Particularly in this time of high conflict where we are in the world. So to learn these skills helps you across the board in any situation. So if you learn this for co-parenting and then you have to use it in the workplace, wow, you're probably going to grow in the workplace. And then you might have to use it with your, a family member or a neighbor or something. And it is definitely, you call it a superpower. It's also a game changer. And once you get it, it's a game changer. It's a life changer. And I mean, imagine being able to have a co-parenting life that is not rife with just pages and pages and millions of pages of texts and emails going back and forth that are horrible, and dreading seeing that next message. You really can turn these things around for a lot of people.
And again, how you can turn it around is you can go to get Bill's book. I got it on Amazon. I get hard copies, and I get it via Kindle, and it's BIFF, Your Guide to Difficult Co-Parent Texts, Emails, and Social Media Posts. You can also go to the High Conflict Institute, and tons of resources there for getting that training. New ways for families. I just typed in new ways for families and got taken specifically to your website. So thank you so much, Bill and Megan, for being on the podcast today, and just, helping us to just, helping us to just engage and communicate in a better way.
And thank you, Lani. And your energy is so positive and positively contagious. I really appreciate being on your program.
It is. And to have someone like you that's used this and knows the value of it, and it's cool. And I also want to mention that we have something new in the last few months. We haven't really announced it too loudly yet because we have a little more work to do on the website, but we have a live lab where people can, like if you're a parent, you can just log on and you pay a little bit and work with one of our coaches just briefly to learn how to write a BIFF response, right? So just be watching for that. Best thing to do is sign up for our newsletter on our website, and that way you'll get alerted when we have new things like that coming out, and when Bill's new BIFF for lawyers and law firms comes out.
Okay.
You know, that's a really good way to get all that info.
Right.
Oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to do that. And for those of you who like listening to podcasts, check out It's All Your Fault, High Conflict People podcast with Bill and Megan.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys again, both. This is Lani Akiona of the Akiona Law Podcast, wherein we talk about all things that intersect in the areas of family law and divorce. Thank you for joining us today. Until next time, be safe and be well.
The information in this podcast is general advice only and should not in any respect be relied on as specific legal advice.